absolutely rejects the establishment of buffer zones on any part of its land and refuses any foreign troops' offensive intervention on its soil. Russia asserts that the Syrian government is the only side responsible for the protection of the Syrian people, and any anti-terrorism activity by the international coalition should obtain its approval. Syrian Arab Army units thwart an attempt by a terrorist group to infiltrate into al-Masalih and al-Zablatani neighborhood in Damascus countryside. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our news for today. The Foreign and Expatriates Ministry has affirmed the Syrian Arab Armed Republic's absolute rejection of a buffer zone on any part of Syrian land under any pretext, and its refusal of any foreign troops' offensive intervention on its soil, adding that Syria, in consultation with its friends, will take all the necessary measures to protect its national sovereignty and territorial safety and integrity. In a statement, the ministry said that the Turkish attempts to establish a buffer zone on Syrian territories constitute a flagrant violation of the principles and objectives of the UN Charter and international law, according to which states' national sovereignty must be respected and no interference should be made into their internal affairs. The ministry added that such attempts also represent a violation of the UN Security Council's resolutions on combating terrorism and drying up its sources, particularly resolutions 2178, 2170 and 1373. The ministry called on the world community, particularly the UN Security Council, to move rapidly in order to put an end to the Turkish government's violations which threaten regional and international peace and security. The ministry pointed out that the Syrian people, who through their steadfastness and army's heroisms and sacrifices have been facing all the killing and destruction, are the only side exclusively entitled to determine their options and future, and will allow no one to interfere in their affairs. The ministry added that the Syrian people are also determined to confront all plots that target Syria's territorial integrity and security of the land and people, and to defend their sovereignty and independent national decision. The Turkish government, the ministry noted, has been set since the beginning of the crisis in Syria on systematically undermining stability in the country and threatening its sovereignty and territorial integrity through providing all forms of political, military and logistic support for the armed terrorist organizations and harboring, training, funding and arming them, and facilitating the passage of the terrorists who have come from 83 states into Syria, thus turning Turkey into a basis of the terrorism that has been hitting Syria and Iraq and threatening the rest of the countries of the region. The ministry made it clear that the conspiracy against the city of Ain al-Arab in Aleppo countryside, recently unfolded, is a clear proof of the solid relationship between Ankara and the terrorist ISIL organization. Meanwhile, Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said the Syrian government is the only side responsible for protecting the Syrian people's sovereignty. He affirmed that any action targeting ISIL by the international coalition should obtain the Syrian government's approval. Medvedev underlined the need that any anti-terrorism activity be based on international consensus, not on a unilateral decision taken by a single state. He added that Moscow has not abandoned its duty or cooperation regarding the fight against terrorism, asserting that authorization in this respect must be obtained within the framework of international law. Earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Russia and the US can effectively cooperate in combating terrorism. Following his talks with his American counterpart John Kerry yesterday, Lavrov said Kerry shared with him such stand. He added that there was an understanding of the special role played by Russia and the US in the efforts aimed at solving the problems of the peoples and states without exception. Welcome back. In a new spectacular achievement in the war against terrorism, units of the Syrian Arab Army foiled an infiltration attempt by al-Nusra Front terrorists from the western axis of Jobar neighborhood in Damascus countryside into the soap factory and al-Masalikh areas in al-Zablatani, killing and wounding dozens of them. The Syrian Arab Army also dismantled tunnels connecting Jobar with the surrounding streets. Units of the Syrian Arab Army killed and wounded scores of terrorists and destroyed their vehicles and heavy machine guns in Al-Hamidiyya, Mashara, Batina, Ajraf and Dawha in Al-Qunaytira countryside. In Daraa countryside, Syrian Arab Army units eliminated dozens of terrorists and wounded others by targeting their dens in Al-Kirik and Bajabija in Daraa al-Balad. In Homs countryside, units of the Syrian Arab Army destroyed a car loaded with weapons in Al-Rastan, killing all terrorists inside. The People's Assembly has declared the martyrdom of its member for Hama Governorate, Waris al-Younes, who was shot and killed in his car by terrorists on Hama al-Salamiya road. Exclusive images for the news center show the arrest of the Russian security authorities of terrorist Nadir Demidov, involved in recruiting terrorists.
Authorities are conducting a wide-scale operation to apprehend and capture terrorists, some of them foreigners, being recruited to be sent to Syria and Iraq and the republics of Chechnya, Dagestan and Ingushetia. The following images show the arrest of one terrorist in the Republic of Dagestan.
Часто у вас здесь так бывает? Алло? Алло? Да?
The Russian authorities continue to shoulder their responsibilities in protecting their citizens according to the UN international laws, which call for combating terrorism and dismantling terrorist networks all across the world.
In Iraq, Iraqi army arrested the most dangerous terrorists from Daesh in Baghdad, who were behind a series of blasts that hit the capital, including the neighborhood of al-Qadimiyya. Yesterday, Iraqi security forces said that the Iraqi army carried out a surprise operation in al-Azamiyya district, arresting 15 members of the most dangerous cells of Daesh terrorist organization, seizing the explosive belts and maps designed for striking several areas in the capital. Meanwhile, the funeral of the Iraqi member of parliament Ahmed al-Khafaji, who was killed in al-Qadimiyya terrorist attack, was held. Among the people that took part in the funeral were House Speaker Salim al-Jabouri and the two vice presidents Usama Najafi and Nour al-Maliki. Finally, in Egypt, at least 12 people were injured in a bomb blast that took place in the center of Cairo. Sources in the Ministry of Health said that most injuries were slight. The wounded were all civilians and they included a pregnant woman. Egyptian Interior Ministry confirmed that the bomb exploded near a court not far from a metro station that is usually packed in such time of the blast. In the framework of the fight against terrorism, units of Egyptian army and security forces carried out a number of operations, killing 2 terrorists, arresting several others and destroying stores of weapons and explosive devices north of Sinai. With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Vani Genjan, but after a short break.